Hello, folks. This is your captain speaking.
All right. We are going live now in just a moment. We are being recorded, and this is my third try, but this is how you learn how to do things. So welcome to the live broadcast. So my name is Pat Schultz, and I am a success coach. I am a transformational speaker, and I am the founder and owner of my company called Ready for Takeoff. And I started this podcast because I wanted to showcase people who were courageously living their dream. And today I have with me Dr. Noor A. She is a licensed physician and surgeon. She has a master's in public health, a graduate certificate in infection control. She is a certified professional in public health and a licensed life, health, and annuities professional. Now, if there is anybody who is living her dream, it is this young woman, and I am so excited to have her on today's podcast. Now, I looked at her website, and she described herself as someone who is passionate, strong-willed, a mother, wife, doctor, researcher, entrepreneur, and a champion of women in science who want it all. And certainly Dr. Noor has done her very best to live a life where she can have it all. And so Dr. Noor, thank you and welcome to the podcast. And what I would like to do is start out with how you got into medicine to begin with. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started that journey?
Yes, well, thank you so much, Pat, for such a gracious introduction. I'm so honored for the time that you're giving me and sharing with your audience. So I hope we have a great conversation today. So thank you for your question about how I got into medicine. And honestly, I think it's been something that was just ingrained in me since I was very young. I think by the time I was 10 years old, there was no doubt in my mind that this is what I wanted to do, that medicine is what I wanted to pursue. I had a very big influence ingrained in me which is my grandfather. When I was younger, he was an anesthesiologist. He was my biggest role model. So growing up in that household, I looked up to him a lot, and I figured this is it. This is what I want to be when I grow up. And I knew that from a very, very young age. There was no other option. There was no backup career.
So how old were you when you started going to medical school?
Yeah, so I was 18 years old. So I graduated high school. I grew up in New York City. So I went to high school in Bronx High School of Science. I graduated in 2007, and I went straight into an accelerated medical program back in my home country in Bangladesh. So the rules are a bit different when you go abroad for studies. So if you can meet the requirements, and I took some advanced courses in high school, I met all the prerequisites, I was able to skip undergraduate and go straight to medical school when I was 18 years old.
Wow, wow. And so your dad was a real role model for you.
My grandfather, yes, he really was, because my father at the time was living in America. I was in Bangladesh, and my grandfather was my only male role model who was home, and I looked up to him a lot. So he definitely shaped most of who I am today, my passion, my values, and really instilled in me that desire to pursue medicine.
So would it be safe to say that you really did have some family support in your desire to go to medical school?
For sure. I would say in the early part of my career, my family was they all knew, like my mom, my dad, they were like, oh, well, we know that she's going to be a doctor when she grew up. So it was just assumed, and it was just everyone helping me, carry me the rest of the way.
So tell me a little bit about the specialty that you have in medicine.
Sure. So in countries like Bangladesh, very developing countries, we'll call them to be gracious, with low resources, we have a high population, low education, low resources, and a lack of doctors. So when our medical school, we're trained from a very early on in our career to handle all types of cases. So although I'm trained in internal medicine, general surgery, OBGYN, I've done all of it. My formal training and the most of my special interest areas are in women's reproductive health, maternal and child health, as well as general surgery.
And on a global level, is there a lot of effort, money put into this particular area of maternal and child medicine?
Yes. Because from a public health perspective, the infant and child mortality of a nation is really what is a marker that determines the health status of that country. So when we have aid organizations such as USAID and other international and national levels, we have a lot of investment in maternal and child health to make sure that the mothers of the country, the babies of the country, are brought up from a good, healthy foundation, so it can strengthen the economy and they can be, a productive part of the workforce as they grow up later in life.
So when did you move to the United States?
I moved back to the States about 2 years after I graduated medical school, in about 2016. I was married. I got married and my husband lived in New York. So it was like a new chapter of my life. So I moved back to start a career back in the States.
Wonderful. And where are you located now?
Right now, I'm living in Tampa, Florida, with my family, my husband. I have a 1.5-year-old son who was born in Florida. So this is where we decided to settle down.
Wonderful. And you have a medical practice in Tampa. That is correct, right?
No, I'm actually not practicing in the States. My medical practice is all back home abroad. My license is active in Bangladesh, where I'm from. It also works in the neighboring countries there. So the Eastern Hemisphere is where my clinical practice is based. In the Western Hemisphere, I focus on my health insurance consulting business.
All right. So I want everyone who's listening to understand that Dr. Noor is still a doctor and she still practices medicine, but your clinical practice then is in your home country.
That's right.
And is that where you do your clinical research as well?
Yeah, research is all over. In 2019, I was in Australia for the summer for research. So it really depends. I like to have a global impact and a global footprint. So it's all over. It really depends on the year and what project I'm focused on.
Wonderful. So you hinted that in the United States, that is where you have your insurance practice. So help everybody get their head around the fact that here is this bright medical doctor who now is also in the insurance industry, in addition to your medical practice and clinical research. How did that happen?
Yeah, it's something that I definitely fell into, Pat. It's nothing that I didn't even know like this was a thing or anything that I sought out. At the time, I was, my job prior to starting this consulting practice, I was on a contract with the VA, which ended quite abruptly. So I was like, my world got a little shook and I was searching for a career or something to do. And this is something that just fell into my lap. And the more I explored it, the more I went into it, I realized, wow, I can really make an entrepreneurial career out of this and really piece together my clinical background, my public health knowledge, everything that I've learned to help others understand their health insurance. So what I do now is I work with entrepreneurs, small business owners, anyone who has to figure out their health insurance on their own and they don't have any corporate benefits for health. I help them figure out what's their best bet for health insurance. And this is so specific and so different to individuals and their situations. And what I try to do is bring together my knowledge of healthcare systems globally and really try to help people leverage whatever situation they're in so they can really, milk the system for what it is to help work in their favor. So help leverage their position and pick the right health insurance plan for their situation at that time.
From my experience, even when people have insurance through their employer, there are usually several choices that you need to make.
Yes.
And I'm not so sure all the employees really understand all those options. And it's been narrowed down for them. And many people stay in jobs that they do not like because they do not want to lose their health insurance benefits. And then those who are courageous enough to make that leap, their big concern is, how do I find insurance that I can afford? So when you are meeting with entrepreneurs, what does that initial consultation talk about? Do you hear these questions from them?
Oh my gosh, all the time. You mentioned two really great points, Pat, which I'll touch on a little before I answer your question. And the first is, you're right, when we're working for corporations and, and you're assigned your benefits, or you have to enroll every year and you're given 2 or 3 options, sometimes you just blindly pick because you don't even know the difference between an HMO or a PPO, or which deductible, or what that really means when it comes to using your policy. Should you just choose the cheapest out of pocket and just pick that one? So even just having it narrowed down to 2 to 3 choices is not enough, especially when you're given a deadline, like please enroll by Monday or you get no benefits for the year. So it's not a great situation. And I've helped people kind of in those tight timelines figure out which one to pick as well. I'll give one pro tip here. If you have the option, go for the PPO. And if they're all PPOs, go for the one with the lower deductible. That's going to have you be less out of pocket in the long run. So that's my little tip there. And yes, Pat, it's a shame because I do come across so many people who give up on their dreams, or who have an entrepreneurial vision but are afraid to leave their corporate job because of those great health benefits. And my answer to that is just to offer assurance that there's definitely a solution out there. You're just not aware of it, and that can make you feel fearful, apprehensive of the unknown. But that's really what health insurance consultants and advisors like myself are here for, is to find that solution for you. And you can do a consultation with me. I do free 15-minute consultations. In fact, none of my services, I charge anything at all. So if you just want to have a conversation about health insurance and to even just know that, yes, the plan that you're on right now is amazing, stay on that plan. Or to know, like, you don't have to keep that job just for that plan. There's something on the private market that's better out there for you. So if you decide to book a call with me ever, on that call, I'll ask you first, hey, what do you have right now? A lot of times people who are on corporate benefits, they can't even answer that first question because it just gets automatically deducted from their biweekly paycheck, which is just fine. But it's important for you to know how much you're paying, because then how can I recommend something that's either better or worse, or just assure you that you're in the best plan possible? So number one tip there is, I'm going to ask you, how much are you paying right now? And it's important for you to know that. So that's that. And then once I gather some information on what you have right now, I'll also ask about where you live. What is your usage of health insurance? What do you really need it for? Someone who just uses their health insurance for annual physicals has a much different need from insurance than those who are chronic diabetic and need injectables every week, right? So finding that balance, and insurance is all about risk. So I'm going to assess and gauge your risk status as an individual and match that with your usage of health insurance and recommend a policy that balances that risk for value for price, and just let you know, hey, I recommend this for you.
One of the things that I work on a lot with my clients is this idea of our mindset and our beliefs. And there is this belief that if I'm an employee and I have health insurance benefits, that those are the best benefits available. And that is not always the case, but we've been brought up that if we're an employee, we have this benefits package, and that health insurance option is the best one for us. And that is not the case. In fact, some of those employee benefits, that the employee portion that we pay, can be very high. In fact, corporations over the years have been paying less and less and less due to the high cost of health insurance benefits. The companies are paying less, and they're putting more of that cost onto the employees. And so no one is really checking in the marketplace to see if they could do better in the marketplace. And in terms of not pursuing a dream because you're afraid to let go of these benefits that you believe are the best alternative for you, it's a fallacy. And it's such a shame to see people give up on their dreams just because they can't let go of this belief that, you know, the employer insurance benefit is the best route for them.
Absolutely right, Pat. You mentioned so many great things there, and you're right. And as time has gone on and the percentage that the employer is paying is going less and less, you know, many people are overpaying for years and they just don't even know it and they don't think to check. One thing I like to say is, you know, don't just reach out to me just because you have a need for health insurance. Reach out to me even if you don't. Again, just for that conversation and that peace of mind and insurance, sometimes just to have a professional let you know that, yeah, stick to where you are. It's great. Or you know what, I'm looking at 2 other options that could be saving you, I don't know, $200 a month. And that could definitely add up. So I really encourage all types of conversation with me. And Pat, there's something else that you mentioned regarding families, which I'd like to address. And that's employers. Sometimes they will pay a good portion, if not all, for their employees' premium for health insurance. But once you start adding spouses and dependents, employer contribution can be zero. So that's why sometimes you'll see a big jump when you start to add on spouses and dependents. And there's an option here, there's an opportunity here to have your spouse and children on a separate plan altogether. There's no rule that says you have to add your spouse and kids on the same policy that you're on, especially if it's not serving you. You know, you don't have to do that. It's just like paying 2 separate bills. You have one bill for phone and one bill for your car. You can have 2 bills for health insurance for 2 separate policies.
I was not aware of that. So it seems to me that anyone should be well educated as to what their employer is offering them, kind of get a second opinion, which is just a little pun there since you're a doctor. Okay, yeah. Get a second opinion on their insurance. And certainly if they're thinking about going off on their own, have that conversation well in advance so that the fear of what am I going to do with my insurance is dissipated, and to not give up on that. So what makes you unique in the insurance marketplace?
Definitely being a medical professional, being a doctor in the health insurance space for sure. I do think that many physicians are very unclear or unaware or undereducated when it comes to health insurance options. And I work with them a lot too. And they really have no idea what to pick. It's not something, finance and insurance is not something that's taught in medical school. It's obviously non-clinical, it's a finance subject. So that makes me unique. I've been called a fox in the hen house in the past, but really I'm on your side. And that's something that I like to, you know, make sure people understand is I'm using my knowledge of global healthcare systems to help you take advantage or leverage the situation so it works in your favor. So I really do think that, you know, just having a conversation and knowing and understanding and knowledge is the key to empowerment. You know, making an empowered decision when it comes to your insurance and benefits. I really just want to dispel the notion that insurance is a scam. And the only reason people think it's a scam is because they don't understand it. So if I can help with the education and understanding aspect of it and make people feel more empowered to choose a right health insurance plan and moreover use their health insurance plan, I come across a lot of people who are afraid to use it, and that's because they don't understand it. So that's the difference that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, they're afraid to use it because they're afraid that they're going to get a big bill.
Yes,
and they're not going to be able to pay that bill. And they're not quite sure what's covered, what's not covered. And you're right, there is this hesitancy to really use it. So you use this word empowerment, and I just have to pick up on that because you made the comment that we need more women founders. The world needs more women founders. So I want to ask you what is the passion that fuels you on this? But I'm thinking it has something to do with that word empowerment. Am I right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I just feel that women in general have this deep burning passion and desire and fuel. And I think a lot of it may stem from all the stereotypes that we've been burdened with, you know, that our roles, our typical gender roles, and the lack of opportunity and equality in the workspace. all of that has hardened and solidified in all of us. And I want to be the one to kind of ignite that into a fuel and a fire. And I feel like if we empower women with the tools and resources to be their own bosses, and to explore entrepreneurship and get more business opportunities, I feel like we can really see that passion and fire ignite into something way more than what the world has known.
So, we hear this a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to the podcast are thinking, yes, I agree with that. But how does a woman make it happen? If a woman is listening to this podcast and she's thinking, yes, I get it, I want to do that, but what are the steps? How? Like, break it down for me. What would you say?
Yes, great question. And I think the first step comes from what you teach, Pat, and that's mindset. If you want to, that's wonderful. That's step one. But in your mind, you have to tell yourself, I can, and not just yourself. And this is really key here. I feel like we all tell ourselves that, of course, we're capable, we can do it all, but you have to convince the ones around you as well. And for that, you need a deep resolve in yourself and confidence and understanding, and just know, not like I think I can, but know that you can do it. And once you're so committed in that understanding that I know I can do this, you need to convince your support system around you, the people who live at home with you, the people who are going to have your back during the down times, the times that you're going to fail, they need to be fully convinced that you can do this as well. And I think that's one of the biggest things that helped me to come this far, is all of the times that I failed. I failed so many times. I was down so many times that I continue to tell my support system that, hey, don't forget, I can do this. Just because I'm having a dip or I'm in a trough right now does not mean that I cannot. So I'm reminding myself, and I'm reminding those around me that I can still do this.
There is the knowing, the conscious knowing, but then there is the knowing deep in your subconscious. And yes, that is where the power is. So were there some challenges that you had with your family and your support system? I'm just thinking about how proud your family was about you becoming a medical doctor, and now all of a sudden you're going into the insurance field. Was there a disconnect with them on that?
Oh, huge. And I think, my cultural background has a lot to do with this, being a woman of color, of South Asian descent. Being a doctor can only mean clinical practice. Because if you're not practicing clinically, then why did you go to med school? And what the heck is all of this for, right? So that career pivot from clinical medicine, from going from practice to starting a business with all the unknowns, starting from negative even, it was just too much uncertainty, too much non-traditional paths, too much, going against the grain for anyone to feel comfortable with. So definitely I felt a lot of doubt from my family. I was, there were times where they were straight up like, no, you can't do this. You cannot pursue this. But it was during those times that I really stood my ground and I said, no, I can do this. And you need to understand that I can do this and I will do this. During the worst times is really when you need to keep that resolve as grounded as possible and remind yourself and others around you, and don't give up.
And so what was the transition for your husband in all of this? Because that kind of had to be a turnaround for him.
Yeah, a big challenge for him there as well. I'm very, very fortunate that my husband has a very established career in the corporate world. So he's had that stability that allowed me to take this risk, because it was a huge risk, starting a business, coming from my background, this huge learning curve of not knowing anything about a new industry. So that I had to kind of constantly remind him and feel that need for certainty for him that, yes, I can do this. And he had to take the burden of my financial dips, when I was, upside down or I was going at a loss, he had to take that responsibility. And it was uncomfortable for him. And it was difficult for him when others asked like, oh, what's your wife up to? Or what is she doing now? He had to explain, oh, well, this is what she's doing now. And this is her career now. And it took a while, years, the first year and a half, until I was steady and stable for him to proudly say like, oh yeah, my wife has a business now, because it wasn't like that when it started. I didn't really have a business, now he can say it easily.
Good for him. Good for him. We sometimes forget about the husband who is on his own journey when his wife decides to go out on her own.
That's right.
So we've got this mindset and this knowing that, yes, I can do this. I will do this. I am doing this. What would be the next steps that you would suggest to a woman who's thinking about branching out into her own entrepreneurial world?
Sure. Yes. For tactical next steps, and this is really important, like you said, a lot of women is like, okay, I want to, but what do I do now? And I actually do offer my mentorship to a lot of South Asian women. So a lot of people in my own network have reached out to me when they see my pet presence online digitally. They're like, oh my gosh, how did you go from this to this? What happened? I want to do that too. What are my next steps? And the first thing I advise is to have your financial piece together and committed. And what I mean by that is open your LLC, get a business bank account, kind of have those financial pieces set for accountability. So then there's no backing out. It's like, oh crap, well, I just registered to the IRS.gov for a business tax ID. Well, I guess I got to make it work now. So I kind of push women towards that, and maybe in a tricky sort of way. But the first step I say is get your finances in order, establish a business officially, so then you can put the pieces into work. Like, okay, well, now how do I become profitable? How do I get a client? How do I market myself or brand myself?
And so tell us about your mentorship program.
Yeah, so it's something that it just started from a need. And again, I like to remind everyone, all of my services are 100% free, whether it's a consultation for health insurance, mentorship for starting a new business as a woman. My medical practice abroad is free. I'm also hiring for my team, so giving opportunities for work in the Tampa Bay area. So it doesn't cost anything to speak with me or get any advice or have a conversation. So I had friends in my own network reach out to me, say they're interested in starting a side hustle or their own business, where to start. And I just kind of gave them a framework, the finance piece, like I just explained, how to digitally look good online. What are the things you must invest on, and what are the things you don't, you can kind of wing it until you grow and scale farther. And so far I've done it to a few of my friends. And one thing I've learned along the way is not everyone is just going to take that advice and take action immediately. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage for someone to do it, and they have to do it on their own times. So even though I've given my feedback and advice, some have taken on and some have decided to take it easy and slow, and that's okay, because it is a big jump and it's a big deal. So I've also learned that just because I'm mentoring someone and giving them the advice doesn't mean that they're going to take the advice and take action immediately. They'll do it on their own time.
Okay. I feel that it is so important to have role models that look like us, okay? And what an incredible opportunity for any woman who happens to either see or listen to this podcast to know that there is a woman of your background who is living her dream, who wants it all and has figured out a way to get it, and is willing to share that path with other people. And we need that. We need it very badly. I have found that, women of color like to do business with women of color, and they look to those women for advice, for mentorship. Not that other people could not provide that for them, but there's just that natural draw to someone who looks like we do, and who has the same cultural background and knows some of those challenges that we're facing, and you've lived through them. And look at you, you've come out at the other end quite victorious. So what are the ways that people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for those words, Pat. And you summed it up so nicely. And I think the reason we're drawn to these role models is because it's specifically the challenges. And, like, I understand, I get it. I've had the expectations from my in-laws. I've had the family pressure to pursue a traditional clinical medicine path. I've had like, no, you can't do this, and having to stand up for myself and say, yes, I can, and facing the consequences of standing up for myself. So I totally, totally get it. And I just want to, if you're a woman of color listening to this, especially if you're South Asian, the path is so unknown. It's an uncharted path. Women from my background just don't do this. We just don't do it because there's so many roadblocks and challenges. But I just want to say that it's possible. You just have to want it and tell yourself in your head that, yes, and don't listen to anyone else. So if you want to reach out to me, my website is drnoorhealth.com. That's DRNOORHEALTH.com. I can offer you advice on your health insurance, on career mentorship, as well as if you're in the Tampa Bay area listening to this and looking for career opportunity. I'm now training others to do what I do, again, to give a new career opportunity. So I'm happy to talk to you about that as well.
Fabulous. Now, those of you who are listening, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Noor, please put them in the comment section. And then after the conclusion of this podcast, Dr. Noor will respond to your questions. She will respond. So be sure to type them in the comment section. She will also put in how to get a hold of her. I know that she gave that to you here, but she'll type it in so that it's very easy for you to have her contact information to follow up with her. And I'm so happy that you took the time to share with other people. And that this can apply to men as well who want to leave their job and go off on their own. They have to know that they can do it too, okay? This isn't just for women, but the belief is so important. And then to take some very concrete actions to move yourself toward your dream. And even those who take your advice and they do it more slowly, they're still taking action toward their dream. And the more action you take, the more confidence you get. And it makes it easier to move even further toward what you most want. And any last pieces of advice for someone, male or female, who's thinking about going off on their own, starting their own company, pursuing their dream?
Yes, do it, and don't give up, and don't worry about health insurance and benefits. Leave that up to me. If you've got an idea and you've always wanted to make it happen and you're looking for a sign and you're listening to this, go do it. And if health insurance is holding you back or any other benefits for that, you let me know and I'll take care of that so you can go pursue your passion.
That's fabulous. Sometimes when I tell people that as a coach, I help people make their dreams come true, they sometimes think, that's a little bit pie in the sky. But the reason I wanted to start this podcast is that I know there are people out there who want it all and they're getting it. And they are failing. I love the way that you mentioned that you failed many, many times. We think if we fail that we're a failure, and everybody fails, especially when you're going into uncharted waters, as you have done. And so you fail, you learn from that, you pick yourself up and you keep moving forward, and we can learn from our failures. We've been brought up to think that when we fail or we make a mistake, that's a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because it helps us learn what to do next. And so I'm so grateful that you took the time to share your journey with us. I know that it's going to inspire other people. I know it's going to inspire other women for sure. And I hope that they will see that you're very approachable and that they can reach out to you for your advice and your mentorship. So again, thank you everyone for listening. Again, my name is Pat Schultz. I'm a success coach. My company, Ready for Takeoff, I help people get ready to take off. I help them kind of crush their limiting beliefs so they can live the life they always wanted. And please look for this podcast and its recording on my YouTube channel and also on Facebook. And I'm sure you're going to see Dr. Noor posting it on all of her social media as well. Thank you again, Dr. Noor.
Thank you so much, Pat. I had a wonderful conversation and I hope that we can connect again. Thank you so much.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.